Hello and welcome to Cybersecurity Today. I'm Jim Wiggins, your host, here to bring you the most current and essential developments in computer security. In just 30 minutes, our action-packed program will engage you in compelling conversations and keep you informed about the world of cybersecurity. Our talk show newscast hybrid format caters to a wide audience, from novices to seasoned experts. If you're new to cybersecurity, we'll equip you with the knowledge and tools necessary to safeguard computer systems. For our experienced viewers, we offer insight from leading cyber experts, shedding light on the future of our industry. So sit back and enjoy as we delve into an informative and entertaining exploration of cybersecurity. We're delighted to have you with us today. Now, we're prepared an exhilarating lineup for you featuring two distinct segments to keep you in the loop on everything cybersecurity related. First up, we have what's called Cyber Bites, where we'll tackle the latest news and events in cybersecurity, from data breaches to emerging threats. If you want to stay informed on cutting-edge developments, don't miss the Cyber Bites segment. We have a lot to discuss, and we can't wait to share these crucial updates with you, so stay tuned. Then, in our second segment, we have Dr. Michaela Iorga from the National Institute of Standards and Technology coming onto the show to discuss OSCAL. Now, OSCAL, or the Open Security Controls Assessment Language, is a standardized language and set of formats developed by NIST to streamline the process of creating, managing, and sharing security and privacy and control information. We've asked Dr. Iorga, who is the Strategic Outreach Director of OSCAL, to come onto the show and talk to us about OSCAL. Automation is quickly becoming a major modality in IT and cybersecurity, so I'm super excited to have Dr. Iorga talk about OSCAL and how it's poised to help organizations and federal agencies help manage their cyber risk via methods that we're going to talk about within the context of OSCAL. Okay, so let's get into Cyber Bites and talk about what's going on in the cybersecurity industry. In our first news article, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has launched a pilot program called the Ransomware Vulnerability Warning Pilot, sometimes called the RVWP, to identify and address vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure systems targeted by ransomware groups. The program scans for internet accessible weaknesses linked to known ransomware actors using services like CISA's free cyber hygiene vulnerability scanning. The RVWP began on January 30th with 93 organizations contacted about a Microsoft Exchange service vulnerability called Proxy Not Shell. The initiative is a response to the 2022 Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act, CIRCIA, which requires covered entities to report cyber incidents and ransomware payments to CISA. The program aims to reduce the impact of ransomware attacks on organizations such as schools and hospitals. The Biden administration's national cybersecurity strategy and budget request also emphasizes tackling the ransomware threats to critical services nationwide. A second news article is that the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency called CISA, the FBI, and a multi-state information sharing and analysis center have issued a joint alert revealing that a nation-state hacking group and the criminal XE group infiltrated an unnamed federal civilian agency between August 2021 and January 2023. The group exploited known vulnerabilities in Progress Telerik software within the agency's Microsoft Internet Information Services web server, sometimes called IIS. Google's threat analysis group informed CISA that the China-linked Hafnium group, known for the massive Microsoft Exchange server compromise in 2021, targeted this unnamed agency. The XE group, suspected to be Vietnamese and specializing in credit card skimming, attempted to infiltrate the agency using malicious DLL files disguised as PNG image files. CISA has previously mandated federal agencies to patch the exploited vulnerability, which allows for remote code execution. In our third news story, CISA has identified a critical vulnerability referred to as CVE 2023-26360, impacting Adobe ColdFusion versions 2021 and 2018, which has been exploited in the wild. The arbitrary code execution flaw results from improper access control and can be abused remotely by unauthenticated attackers in low complexity attacks without any user interaction. Adobe has addressed the issue in ColdFusion 2018 Update 16 and ColdFusion 2021 Update 6. Administrators are advised to install security updates as soon as possible and apply security configuration settings. CISA has given U.S. federal civilian executive branch agencies until April 5th to secure their systems against potential attacks using this exploit. All organizations are strongly urged to patch their systems to prevent exploitation attempts targeted at their network. In our fourth story, the White House has released its national cybersecurity strategy focusing on 5 key pillars: defending critical infrastructure, disrupting and dismantling threat actors, shaping market forces for security and resilience, investing in resilience, and forging international partnerships. The strategy emphasizes the private sector's role and collaboration between public and private sectors. Key takeaways for the private sector include a call for Congress to develop legislation that shifts liability to entities failing to take responsible cybersecurity precautions, harmonizing new and existing cybersecurity regulations, and investing in Internet of Things, or IoT security, and quantum computing research. The strategy encourages private entities to collaborate with the federal government in combating malicious cyber activity, doubling down on ransomware threats, and providing support during cyber incidents. The Office of the National Cyber Director will coordinate the strategy's implementation to be released later. We've been delving into the most recent updates in the world of cybersecurity, and it's been an engaging conversation up to this point. However, we'll be taking a quick break, and upon our return, we'll be joined by Dr. Michaela Iorga to discuss OSCAL. Stay with us, and we'll be back shortly. Attention cybersecurity and compliance professionals. The 4th annual conference on the Open Security Control Assessment Language, or OSCAL, hosted by the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the Department of Commerce, has been set. Join the OSCAL community members on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 at the Herbert C. Hoover Federal Building in Washington, D.C. as participants explore the latest advancements in OSCAL-based automation and risk management. With a lineup of prestigious speakers and innovative presentations, this event will showcase OSCAL's international adoption and impact. On May 24th, there will be a half-day in-person educational workshop to build your skills in the development and use of OSCAL. This workshop is perfect for developers of control-oriented security tools and organizations looking to create or use OSCAL-based information. Registration is now open and the event is free. Please note that the May 24th workshop will not be live streamed. This is an opportunity to network, learn, and help shape the future of security automation. For more information on speakers, agenda, and registration details, visit the 4th annual OSCAL conference website. Welcome back to Cybersecurity Today. For our second segment, we're being joined by Dr. Michaela Iorga, who is the OSCAL Strategic Outreach Director at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. She is also the Cloud Security Technical Lead at NIST and chairs the Cloud Security and Forensics Working Groups. Dr. Iorga, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me today, Mr. Wiggins.
Absolutely. We're super excited to have you here. I thought maybe what we could do is have you talk a little bit about your background, first off, in cyber and risk management, just to give the audience kind of a flavor for what you've done in this particular space before we get into OSCAL.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So About 14 years back, I made a very wise and fulfilling decision of moving from the private sector to the government. So I joined NIST, and since then I've been focusing on different projects around cybersecurity, in particular cryptography I started with. I did a lot of ad-hoc network security, and then about 10 years, more than 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years, I was assigned the role of Senior Security Technical Lead for Cloud. This is when everything started. That was around the Cloud First mandate. And all the challenges that we had at that time, and with the roles that I had to think of opportunities of helping government agencies to meet the mandates, to guide. NIST, as you probably see, and our audience is probably aware as well, is a National Institute of Standards and Technologies, is a government agency under the Department of Commerce. NIST promotes the American innovation and competitiveness by advancing the measurement science, standards, and technologies. So aligned with this mission, one of the projects that we discussed today, that we plan on discussing today, is the Open Security Controls Assessment language that surfaced as a need of advancing cybersecurity posture, secure automation for government agencies in the era of moving to cloud and adopting cloud services.
Understood. So since you've introduced it, maybe we can talk more about what OSCAL is in the context of information security, and maybe you can give our audience kind of like a 30-second elevator speech on how you would describe it to somebody maybe on the street.
So OSCAL is a language that enables experts to express secure information pertaining to security controls, their implementations, and assessment methods in digital formats that allows, in this way, software tools to process the information, opening a new era for new development of government risk management or GRC tools, and enhance security automation processes by bringing them with higher frequency, more continuous, elevating in this way the abilities of managing and reducing the risk incurred during operations.
Understood. So can you talk a little bit more about that and maybe get into some of the problem solving that OSCAL is really trying to accomplish for the industry?
So for many years, our experts were very frustrated, became very frustrated with having to deal during the assessment processes with documentary assessment methods, which are error prone in general because they are human driven, they are very complicated. As we were moving towards adopting more and more cloud services, it became extremely frustrating to have that clear understanding of how systems get stacked in a cloud environment and how controls are inherited and how to have the entire perspective of the system to be able to do a proper assessment. Not to mention that exposing that information that cloud service providers were managing to too many entities was not something that was desired. So at that time, by talking to different experts, came with the idea that having a standard-based process, secure automation process, will be the solution to mitigate all those challenges.
Okay, that's great. That's a great explanation of really what it's trying to solve. Can we talk now a little bit about some of the essential components of OSCAL, specifically like structurally how it's made up?
So I mentioned that OSCAL stands for a language. So language means the information it allows the representation of the information in digital forms that is machine readable. What is the digital form, some people might ask? Well, information that humans are consuming is represented through OSCAL in digital forms that softwares can consume. In this process, to be able to generate that information, you have to have models that define what are the entities that are represented and what are the relations between those entities and what is the relation between the entities defined and the ones in the real world. So for that purpose, to better understand this, OSCAL as a language defines 7 models that are maintained in 3 formats each. So we maintain XML, JSON, and YAML. So a total of 21 models that we're maintaining. Those models, or schemas as we refer to them, define those structures. How do you represent the information? And they are aligned with the risk management process, allowing the representation that normally is used, starting with catalog of controls, going through tailoring those controls by generating profiles, to the implementation of those controls in the context of different systems or of components of the system, to assessment planning and assessment results. And then when you have deficiencies that are found, plan of actions and milestones which are conveyed back to the system owner. So all this type of informations can be represented in machine-readable format, in digital form. The format is the user's choice, and can be consumed by this next generation GRC tools that are learning OSCAL as a language and are able after that to consume that information regardless of the regulatory framework. So when we started the development of OSCAL, which was very challenging of doing, was trying to find a language that will allow us to represent not only the type of information that we're using in the government space, and probably the audience is very familiar with our catalogs of controls with 853 and with objectives and with the baselines 853 Bravo, but we wanted this language to be adopted because it's useful and is able, more than anything, to represent information from other regulatory frameworks. So we looked at the very beginning of how to represent information from ISO, how to represent information from COBIT. So when the team started, rolled sleeves and started implementing in collaboration with FedRAMP, GSA, we wanted to be able to represent more than just 853 controls and help not only the system that have to demonstrate FISMA compliance, but to be able to help the entire world, cybersecurity experts around the world, on using a single language that can help them standardize. Open source, which is very important to note that, allows them to represent that information and proceed with security automation in this way at a lower cost and more efficient.
So how does the language correlate to the machine readable format? Are they the same, or are they complements of each other, or are they? You mentioned JSON and XML. I'm curious as to how that plays in that particular space between the machine readable construct and then the different standards that you just mentioned.
So the language is, or whatever we refer as language as OSCAL, is basically this set of models or schemas that are defining, you can think of that as the grammar. So if we communicate in English, we are using implicitly the grammar to be able to understand, to structure the communication. So OSCAL allows you to structure your information in machine-readable format, in digital format, for systems to understand that this is a control, that this is a statement of the control, that this is a parameter, and be able to consume that information. So in practice, we refer to OSCAL as being the language, the set of models, And OSCAL helps you generate OSCAL content, which will be a system security plan, for example, represented in machine-readable format, which a GRC tool can ingest and process just by knowing the language.
Understood. So that then segues into an interesting area that I'm quite fascinated by. Can we talk a little bit about the kind of controls that can be represented? You know, in the NIST 853 world that you talked about, there's typically, historically, we think of like technical controls and we think of physical controls, operational controls. Is it only for a subset, or does it represent all those control types?
So OSCAL was designed to represent any kind of control, technical and non-technical. And as a matter of fact, we have collaborators that are using that in a very innovative ways to represent policy regulations. In OSCAL as well, while we're designing it, as I mentioned, we're looking at other regulatory frameworks. As a result of the flexibility of the language, today it's available in the public domain, the Center of Internet Security, the CIS catalog of controls in machine-readable format. There are many others that are available, but I would like to allow the authors of the catalogs to present those in May at our conference, May 23rd, because I would like to not speak on their behalf. But there is a lot of information. Another catalog that is in the public domain that I've seen, and it's out there, is the ISM catalog, which is the Australian catalog of controls that the Australian government is using. It's been generated in machine-readable format in OSCAL, and it's available for interested parties. I'm aware of the Cloud Secure Alliance generating their CCM in OSCAL. So if you look at where they are coming from, they're coming from different areas around the world. And therefore, it makes us very excited to acknowledge that OSCAL is internationally adopted. And through their adoption, they demonstrated the usability of OSCAL, the work done to be able to represent. There is also public information and documented on our website through the presentations that have been recorded of another program, it's called Medina in Europe, that uses controls generated by ENISA for Cybersecurity Act in Europe in machine-readable format in OSCAL. So they are exercising OSCAL and use that for their certification program of multi-cloud services.
So I'm very fascinated by what you're talking about, because a lot of things are circulating in my head as I'm thinking about it. You mentioned ISO, you mentioned COBIT. And now you're bringing in other frameworks as well too. Can you speak to how OSCAL interfaces with like ISO 27002 or COBIT? Ultimately, I assume it probably integrates pretty natively with the 853. But can you speak to that for a minute in terms of some of the other frameworks and how they actually plug into the OSCAL standards?
So OSCAL being a language will allow ISO to represent 27002 in machine-readable format as well. There are GRC tools out there that internally already have that information, but being proprietary information, being copyright information to be more accurate, then NIST cannot represent that information for them. But the language can be used to represent that information. And looking at the example that I gave before, just a few minutes ago, the Medina project from Europe, they aggregated for their internal use controls from different regulatory frameworks to create their own catalog of controls. And they brought in 27001 controls and 2. They have also controls from 853. They have some controls for BSI 5. I don't speak on their behalf, but I've seen their presentation, and I'm just using that as an example to demonstrate OSCAL as a language, the flexibility of representing that information. So they were able to represent those controls in machine-readable format. OSCAL is not a tool. OSCAL is a language. So if we are thinking of OSCAL as English, as the mean of communication, as an international language, English, then you would use, of course, some tools to be able to document that. If you are writing something, you can use Microsoft Word, or you can use another application. So those are the kind of tools, the GRC tools are consuming that information expressed in OSCAL to be able to support security assessment, security automation.
So Dr. Iorga, thanks for coming in and talking to us in this first part about OSCAL. Guys, that's going to do it for today's episode of Cybersecurity Today. We want to thank Dr. Iorga for coming in, and we hope you'll watch the second part. We're going to continue this discussion here. We hope that you found today's episode valuable and also useful and gained some new knowledge about OSCAL. We want to thank Dr. Iorga again for coming in and participating and sharing their expertise. Also, just keep in mind that relative to the show itself, to stay informed about upcoming episodes, you can check out our website. It's cybersecuritytoday.org, or you can send us an email at contact@cybersecuritytoday.org. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode. Thanks for coming, guys. Take care.